Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Monica here. I'm going to just introduce Gerald for you. We've got a couple more. I'll let the others let them in. But Gerald here is the founder of RIC. He's been working with this grant consultancy firm for over 9 years now. The areas that they're working in are with R&D, expansion, automation, and hiring. So he's got a team of about 12 across Singapore, Hong Kong, and the Philippines, and they are all he's a certified consultant with the ESG there. Fun fact too, Gerald's also a dad of two. We were talking about our kids earlier, and an avid insect lover. So if you want to chat with him about that, those are things we can also have a chat on later. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gerald.
All right. Hi everyone. Thanks a lot for making time for this. Let me know if you can see my screen. All right. Is everything okay?
Yep, all good.
Okay, good. Then I will go straight into the presentation. I guess everyone wants to know more about the business grants in Singapore. Yeah, so perhaps let me go into a bit of a introduction about myself, a bit more protracted introduction that what Monica has introduced. Okay, so for me, I'm a founder of two companies in the grant consulting / management consulting space. Real Inbound Consulting, which is the company that you see in my background. What we do is that we help businesses secure grant financing. That's our core bread and butter business. And we are currently headquartered in Singapore with some presence in Hong Kong and hoping to expand globally into more countries. Our grant consultancy fee is on a success model, which means we typically charge based on success. And in terms of grants secured per project, it ranges anywhere from SGD 20K to all the way to 7M, depending on the company size and project scale. Right. So on the other hand, I'm also starting a company called Grumpy Technologies. So it's a tech spin-off. We are trying to go into the space of global grant discovery and matching. So basically focusing on helping companies find the right grants, right, for their businesses. But it's still starting phases lah. So it's our attempt at trying to technologify what we are doing, part of what we are doing into a tech platform to make ourselves more scalable. Okay, so I've been doing real inbound consulting, grants consultancy for close to 10 years since internship days, right? So right when I was in university doing internships, I'm really exposed to this field of grant consulting where I was helping some family businesses to help them grow with grants, right? That was my mandate at that point of time. I realized that what I've been doing seems quite helpful and meaningful to all these companies. So so slowly transform it into a full-fledged business. Okay, so that's a bit about me. All right, so the topic of today's webinar, right, the best business grants in Singapore, right? So actually, this is quite a loaded term. How do you define best, right? What's a best grant? Actually, to me, there's really no such term as a best grant. It really depends on your company's state, right? Your company's eligibility, and what project you have on hand, and then from there you can find the best grant. But what I'm trying to do in this webinar, right, is to try to find the best grant based on a general business profile and based on the type of costs that they support. Right, the more types of costs that a grant supports, I would deem it more suitable for the general business. Right, so that's how we kind of define the best business grants. Right, so hang on. I think there's some people coming in. So Monica, I trust that you're letting the newcomers in, right? Okay, I don't have to worry about it. All right, so some before I go into the best grants, right, let me talk about some trends that we see in Singapore's grant landscape. So I'm going to reference the base period as post-COVID, right, until today. Okay, so we are still seeing a very strong focus in the Singapore government wanting to fund sustainability, right? So the first point, yeah, pardon the typo, there should be a dash behind the A. Right. So when we say sustainability, it's basically projects in relation to helping companies achieve resource efficiency. So, reduction in energy consumption, reduction in carbon emission, preparing them, for scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 carbon reporting, given their customers are in jurisdictions which are quite heavily involved in all this reporting, right? So they are impacted. right? So there are quite a lot of grant funding centered around funding SMEs and companies to adopt sustainability-linked initiatives, right? A bright spot also still remains in AI. In fact, we recently a lot of news around Enterprise Singapore, IMDA, Infocomm Media and Development Authority, releasing new funding into AI adoption. And I believe in the next Singapore budget, which is coming up in February, right, there should be more announcement of support going towards artificial intelligence adoption among the businesses in Singapore, right? So that's the two bright spots that I see right now. And then the second point is that unfortunately, so during COVID, right, the grant support level typically is around 70%, right? And I think all of us were very spot at that support level of 70%. So post-COVID, right, there was actually a general drop from 70 to 50% for most of the grants, especially those from Enterprise Singapore, right? Because my guess is that because after COVID, the government feels that we don't have to give so much support, as you don't have to baby the companies to get out of COVID, right? So basically COVID has passed. Now they are lowering the grant support because things have improved, right? So we have seen a general decrease from 70% to 50%. But that's not to say that there are no grants. There are still grants there, and indeed there are still grants going out at 50%. All right. The third point is that most of the grants that we see, right, they are placing increased emphasis on Singaporean workers' outcome and reskilling and upskilling the Singaporean workforce, right? So I see more emphasis in for each grant project, right? There's always the emphasis on the outcome that this project has to lead to some form of a new hiring, creation of Singaporean jobs, or reskilling or upskilling Singaporeans who are in the jobs impacted by the grant project. All right. Next one is, we are seeing continued support on overseas expansion. So this relates to grants that are aimed towards helping Singaporean companies expand overseas and penetrate overseas market, right? Because I think we all know that Singapore market is too small, and our SMEs have to go out, right? So the support there has been pretty consistent in the form of grants like MRA, which I will touch on later, Market Readiness Assistance. Right, so I think everyone, you can stay tuned for the next major updates on the grants scene in Singapore I won't even say much. Maybe you can listen out for the budget really in February, and then expect more news coming out, trickling into the market in March 2025. I believe that there could be some changes to the mainstay grants that you are used to seeing in Singapore. All right. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to comment and post them in the chat. I think at the end of this call, at the end of this meeting, we'll have a Q&A, and we'll do our best to address all of the questions. Okay, so the next few slides, right, I'm going to touch on business grants in a greater detail, ranked according to what we think is best, right? Best meaning most applicable for most SMEs, and in terms of grant support as well. So there are various parameters. Okay, the first would be this grant called Enterprise Development Grant, EDG, under the subsection called Automation. Okay, EDG has a lot of different sections. Some EDG has sections for consulting, to fund consultancy effort. Automation here is to fund companies to adopt automation solutions, like for example, software or automation and system integration related hardware, right, which can automate production lines, right? So why we feel this grant is one of the best, right, is because it supports a very consistent theme across most enterprises, which is to leverage technology to improve productivity and to upscale their presence, right? So for this grant, the eligibility here is that the applicant company has to have 30% Singaporean shareholding. And when we say 30%, it will be at least 30% Singaporean shareholding traced to ultimate individual shareholder level. And Singaporean means citizen or PR. All right, so that's the first criteria. Second criteria is that the solution that the company adopts needs to be a customized solution. So it cannot be off the shelf or standalone equipment. Okay, what I mean by this is, okay, I think most of you might have heard of CRM system like HubSpot, right? Or even accounting system like MYOB or Xero, right? All those are like SaaS, software as a service, and they come as a standard platform. You can't really customize, and then you just pay a subscription fee to use that system. Those are considered off the shelf, and they're actually covered under another grant in Singapore called PSG, Productivity Solutions Grant, right? Where the support level is significantly lower at around up to 30K of funding for the first year only. But for this grant, it particularly targets the customized solution. So it could be a company engaging a software development firm, right, to develop a customized, say, workflow management system, or RPA or Gen AI enabled platform to manage their projects, right? So it's something customized, not really in the market as a standard solution. Okay, so that's the scope, and the funding level will be up to 50% of the cost of the customized solution. And the good thing about this grant is that there's no quantum cap as to the dollar amount of grant you can get, right? And it all depends, how much grant you get depends on various factors, like the track record of your company, its financial position, how long has it been in the industry, how is its revenue, how is its profit, how many jobs, how many employees does it have in Singapore. And the grant agency will also benchmark against certain industry past cases where they have awarded similar grants to similar companies in similar industry, right? So how much average grant they award there, they will benchmark it according to apply the grant to your specific case, right? So these are the typical factors that the grant agency considers when they decide how much to award. In terms of the application process, right? So usually to prepare the EDG application, there's a need to prepare proposals. You need to analyze what are the time savings that can result from the solution adoption. You need to do some forecasts. You need to prepare financials, right? So give and take around 1 month to prepare everything. Evaluation would take around 1 to 3 months. So within that 1 to 3 months, you should get an outcome, and you can expect several rounds of to and fro questions from the grant agency, right, about your application. So within that 1 to 3 months, you get the outcome, and the outcome would hopefully come in the form of an offer letter, right? And after receiving the offer letter, you can have 6 to 12 months to finish up the project, i.e. the software implementation. And after everything is done, the process is to then prepare for claim submission. That's basically putting together the final project report, collecting all the invoices, and showing the bank statements that everything has been paid to the solution provider. And thereafter, once you submit the claims and the claims have been approved, you'll get the reimbursement. And the claims approval and evaluation process takes about 1 to 3 months before you get the reimbursement back into your bank account. Right, so that's the typical flow of most grants in Singapore. And you will notice that they are on reimbursement basis mostly, which means there are hardly any grants that give cash upfront. Right, most of the grants, you will need to spend the money first, finish the project, and then you get to claim the reimbursement. Okay, last thing for this grant is that the supported costs, as I mentioned, would be customized software. It could also include integration of the various softwares to form a integrated platform, so that you don't have to deal with so many siloed systems. So integration effort can also be funded as long as it's a customized form of integration. It also covers automation components of a production line. So for example, engaging a system integrator to design conveyor systems and to design machines to replace humans at each workstation, and then this entire solution could potentially go for funding. And also end user training of the new solution can also be funded. Okay, next is some case studies, right, of this grant. So we have gotten success for quite a few, quite many companies, and these are the two that I would like to just briefly mention. So one of them is like a leading cross-border payments solution provider. So they have a platform which facilitates cross-border payments. So they engage a vendor to develop a customized platform for them to further automate, all this online user acquisition, user authentication flow, because when you deal with payments, you have to authenticate your users very carefully. And then also data analytics on how much volume of transactions were flowing through from what country to what country on their platform, right? So all this were very customized. They got a grant of above 200K at 70% support, and this was pre-COVID times. That's why it was 70. Right now it's all 50, right? And yeah, basically what was funded was a customized solution development, right? And then they also integrated certain advanced third-party tools like Segment's a customer data platform, Full Story, and so Auth0, which is a client authentication tool. All right, the next one is a meat distributor in Singapore. So they are leading distributor for about 20 years. And they basically engage a system integrator to design and implement a automated production line, to automate their meat cutting stations, meat packing, meat weighing, quality control, meat storage and retrieval across 3-story of factory. And the grant they got was above 1 million Sing dollars at 50% support. So which means the entire project cost was about 2+ million. So what was funded was the system integrators costs to design and integrate the conveyor systems, automation equipment, sensors, and the automatic storage and retrieval system. Right. So hopefully these two examples give you a view of how diverse in terms of the project that this grant can support. Right. So that's why in my opinion, this is one of the best grants. Right. I'm gonna go on to the next grant. Okay. So now we move on to another grant, which is administered by another grant agency. It's called the NTUC CTC Company Trading Grant. This grant is actually pretty recently launched, I think couple or 2 to 3 years back, more recent than the EDG that you saw just now. So this grant supports almost similar costs to the EDG that you saw just now. So basically it supports 4 types of costs. If you look at the supportable costs component, it supports software, equipment, consultancy, and training that is meant to improve a business's workers' outcome. Okay, the key word here is workers, because actually NTUC is a trade union. It's the entity in charge of the trade unions in Singapore, right? So this grant has a very strong bias towards benefiting Singaporean headcount, right? So the solution here needs to benefit the work of Singaporean staff. Okay. So in terms of eligibility, the good thing about this grant, right, is that the business does not have to have 30% Singaporean shareholding. It can be a totally foreign-owned business, right? It can even be a subsidiary of a global bank, for example, right? So as long as the business is legally registered in Singapore, and it can also include like NPOs, charities, societies as well, not only like commercial entities. Okay, the funding level of this grant is one of the best in the market right now. It's actually at 70%. It's one of the rare ones at 70%. All right. However, there's a trade-off. So basically, to get the full 70%, the company has to basically commit to increasing the salary of the impacted Singaporean workers of 5 to 10%. Right. And then the company would also have to either be unionized, right, or purchase union membership for their staff if they choose not to be unionized. Right. So there's some strings attached to this grant to get the 70%. Right. And the quantum awarded for this grant is actually dependent on the number of Singaporean staff that is impacted by the solution. So for example, you're looking at a customized software to maybe automate the way you take in projects and the way you execute projects, right? Then let's say the system costs 100K, right? So as a benchmark, you will need at least 10 Singaporean workers to be attached to this grant to say that this software will benefit 10 workers who are currently doing the work manually, right? So this grant would be for companies with more Singaporean headcount. I would say ideally above 10 headcount. Then you can seriously look at this grant to maximize the support level. Otherwise, if it's just 1 or 2 Singaporean workers, the grant out of this will not be much in terms of quantum. Okay. So application process, I wouldn't go into too much detail. It's basically more or less the same as EDG, but this one is a bit more complex because it involves some negotiation on unionization, right? So there's a few more processes involved in between. And yeah, for the supportable costs, it's pretty all-encompassing, right? So they have made it very flexible. You can support software, equipment, consultancy, training, as long as all this costs is in relation to a project that improves workers' outcome. Example of improving worker outcome could be, the system helps the worker save time. Instead of spending like, 10 hours per week on filling up this particular form, maybe, getting an AI-based solution can help them pre-populate certain fields based on, certain data that it draws upon the company's various systems. And then, it saves their time from 10 hours per week to 5 hours per week, right? So those kind of things are justifiable workers' outcome, right? So this is the CTC grant. Why it ranks second is because of the high support level, 70%, and also because of the way it's very flexible in funding various types of grants. All right. So some of the success cases, I wouldn't go into too much details, but basically, yeah, there was a global professional services firm they leveraged the AI solution to digitize over 60 forms that they previously had to complete manually, right? And the workers' outcome here was 8% increase in wage increment of all the 15 committed workers. And the cost supported was a third-party software, which has AI infused in it to automate the work. And then we also had the leading food produce distribution firm. They got a new system, integrated system in form of hardware and sensors and IoT to grade and pack the food produce that they are producing. So traditionally they were doing it manually, like human checking the type of food produced. But now the whole system automatically grades and packs everything. Right. So the workers' outcome was about 5% wage increment for over 180 committed workers. So this company had a lot of workers. Cost supported was the integration services of the software and equipment, solution design and training. Okay. All right. Then the next grant I'm going to talk about is the EDG core capability. Okay, so I'll move a bit faster from here because I think we more or less got the gist of how the grants typically work. So I'll just skim through and then I'll share the most important points in terms of what the grant supports and the eligibility, right? Okay, so this grant would be helpful for companies that are looking to engage third-party consultants. Okay, example, maybe you have you want to do branding, right? And so you engage a branding and marketing consultant to do a brand audit of your current branding, and then to propose some recommendations as to how to target your brand towards a certain target audience. That's one, right? And or you may even engage consultants to develop new business strategies, right? After to help you stay relevant in the market. You can also engage consultants to help you do financial management strategy, right? To make sure that financially you're optimizing your finances and making your business model more sustainable, right? So all this kind of third-party consultancy can be funded, right, up to 50% of the costs. And why this ranks as a third grant is because of the versatility in the types of consulting it can fund. So if you look at the last column, right, it can support business strategy consulting, can support financial strategy, can support brand and marketing development, even human capital strategy. All right. Okay, so some of the core capability success cases. There was a global hotel management firm. They engaged third-party consultancy to work out their new business strategy to penetrate the China market. So that involves quite a deep study of the China hotel and hospitality market. And then they actually did that competitor comparison pricing, and they help the company to determine what's their price point and how can they enter China. Is it through JV? Is it through franchisor relationships, etc. Right, so they got about 37K of grant at 50% support. And then we also had another firm, a rice distributor in Asia. So they got third-party consultancy for strategic brand and marketing development. And this one was very interesting because they got the consultants to work out a strategy to target youth, right? Because their brand was a very old school brand, right? So they want to appeal to youth. So they got the brand consultants to come in and develop a strategy around influencer marketing, right? Around involving social media, being more involved in social media, and how should they position themselves on social media and with influencers to target the youth, right? Okay, so next grant would be CCP. Okay, new product development. Okay, I know I've been going on at this for quite long. We are just left with about three grants. So just to give you an idea. So far, I hope all these grants have been pretty interesting for you. Do take mental notes of your question, and we'll try to answer that later in the Q&A. Okay, this is the fourth grant, and it's also under EDG, Enterprise Development Grant, but under a subsection called New Product Development. Okay, the thing about this grant is that not many companies know about this, but it's a very suitable grant for companies which are innovative and wanting to develop new proprietary technology to commercialize. Right? So in a sense, it's like R&D grant, right? So basically what it can support is companies to develop new offerings for commercialization. For example, maybe a company is in the industry for like 10 years already. They are just, the middleman for distributing a certain type of equipment, right? And then one day decided, okay, I got to change my business model. I can't just forever be a middleman. Otherwise, I'll be cut out in terms of my margins, right? So now I want to hire engineers. I want to hire my own software developers. I want to develop my own equipment, right? My own machine that maybe has AI components in it, and it's even better than the machines that I used to resell. So that now my company has a proprietary product that I can then sell to my clients directly and make my business more scalable, right? So that's the angle that this grant can come in to fund the research and development cost of the first prototype of that new product. Okay, and what this grant can support, right, if you look at the one on the right side, would be salaries of technology development staff. So this includes like your mechanical engineers, your software developers, your product managers, researchers, etc. It can also include outsource development and design costs if you decide to outsource some of this development and design work to external firms. It can support third-party tools that you use in your product development, like for example, SolidWorks, like the computer-aided design software, 3D design software. It can include prototype testing, certification, and outsourced prototype manufacturing costs as well. So it's very versatile. And the funding level is at 50% of the costs that you incur to develop the first prototype. Okay, the keyword here is that this offering that you are trying to develop, right, needs to be considered innovative versus industry norms. So you cannot be developing something that is already like, it's really very commonplace in the market. Like, if you're saying you're going to develop the next accounting software, which is like, similar to Zero accounting, then unlikely that will work. But so your so-called new product has to be quite innovative versus industry norms. And the second important thing is to note that this new product, right, when you develop, you are actually meaning for it to be commercialized. That means you plan to sell it as your own product and earn money from it. That means you're not, your angle is not to use it internally just to improve your own operations, but you are actually using it to sell to other clients. Okay, so yep, some new product development success cases. We helped a offshore engineering firm. They were previously, just doing subsea services like installing cables and, for oil and gas installations. They pivoted into renewable energy. So they actually did offshore solar farms, right? So they leveraged this grant to develop a prototype substation technology that basically is the link between the offshore floating solar farm and relaying the electricity back to the land grid. Right, so this piece of technology is quite new because offshore solar farm at that point of time, I think back in 2020, wasn't such a common concept yet. So the substation technology was actually quite a good piece of innovation. They got about 1/3 million funding, and the funding was about 50 to 70% of various cost categories. Right, the next case is actually one of the leading digital telco firms. They were developing first of its kind platform that allows telco operators to launch a full-fledged telco service within a few days in a new country. So typically without this platform, right, a telco usually when they go to a new country, they take months to set up the infrastructure, to set up, the billing mechanism, the customer facing applications and platforms, right? Usually you need a few months to properly launch a full telco service. But with their product, right, any telco operator can just launch it in a few days. Okay, so the grant they get was quite a big one, about more than 7 million Sing, and it was support for mainly tech development staff salaries. Okay, all right. Okay, so we switch gears. So far we have been talking a lot about company level projects, right? So it's about projects about automation, projects for expansion, blah blah blah. This fifth grant that I'm talking about would be highly applicable to most of us here. So basically, it's called the Career Conversion Program. It's actually salary support given to the company to fund the salaries of Singaporean staff, right? So it's very applicable. As long as you are looking to hire new Singaporeans or you are looking to reskill existing Singaporean employees who have been with your company for at least 1 year, this grant can support 70 to 90% of the salaries of the first 3 to 6 months of the staff, right? The key thing to note here is that all the staff that you are putting for funding needs to be Singapore citizen or PR. They cannot be fresh grads, which means they must graduate for at least 2 years already. And very importantly, they must show some form of career conversion. That means maybe previously they were doing maybe they were operations executive, right, in a shipping firm. And now they come to your company, they do digital marketing, right? So this grant is meant to incentivize companies to take on career converters and to train them internally on the job training. So the government, in exchange for that service of the company, the government funds a certain months of salary of this new staff. Right, so yeah, this grant is actually pretty popular. I would say one of the best hiring grants in Singapore. Right now, most of this grant is undergoing some changes. So right now, there's quite a limitation on the number of quota that they have to award to companies, but it's still ongoing. I expect the bottleneck to ease next year, and yeah, there'll be more and more of such quota available for companies to tap on. Okay, I think this is my last grant. Okay, this grant is for overseas market expansion. So as just now as I mentioned in my first slide, right? A lot of companies in Singapore, the Singapore market is simply too small, right? We need to find overseas markets to sell our services and products to. So this grant, the MRA, addresses specifically that, is to help Singapore SMEs to expand overseas into new sales market, and ideally a B2B kind of business model, right? Because this grant is not so cut out to fund B2C. Okay, so B2B business model to expand into overseas sales market, and the supportable cost, right? If you look at the right side, is split into 3 areas. So it could support your company to, number one, do overseas promotion, which means to buy a booth space in an overseas trade show, or to engage a marketing and PR agency to help you to do marketing and PR in the new market. Second area is to help you with setup costs. So it helps in offsetting your incorporation costs of setting up a new entity in that new market. It also offsets some of the intellectual property filing costs to protect your IP in the new market, and also funds certain types of contract drafting and tax advisory work, which will help you in your overseas market entry. Okay, the third area would be in terms of supporting business development expenses, particularly in business matching services or direct hiring of a overseas BD staff. Now, this is the most popular one that we are seeing a lot of clients going for. Right? So basically, this grant can fund 30 to 50% of the cost of overseas business development staff that they hire for up to 12 months. Okay. So yep, that is the supportable area. I think some of you would likely, I think, immediately see some relevance already in terms of how this grant can support. In terms of eligibility, the key thing to note here, right, is that not only this grant requires 30% Singaporean shareholding, but your company must be an SME. SME means small, medium enterprise, which means your company must have a group annual sales turnover of less than 100 million for the last financial year, or a group employment size of less than 200 employees globally. Right, so it's meant to support companies smaller than MNC or large enterprise level. Okay, the third important criteria is that your company should not have earned more than 100K of sales from that new market you're trying to enter in any of the past 3 years. Because this grant is meant to help companies enter new markets, right? So the market you're entering must be new to you. So there's the revenue limitation there. Okay, support level is 50%, and it's kept at 100K of grant per new country that you enter, spread across the 3 areas of supportable costs that I went through just now. All right. Okay, yeah, there's some success cases, but I probably won't spend too much time. It's typically standard things, supported like booth package, setting up an entity, engaging business matching, getting salaries of BD staff funded, tax advisory, etc. Okay, coming to the end of the presentation, can't wait for the Q&A. But yeah, let me just finish through, just skim through just 1 or 2 slides. So I think all of you would have likely heard of the fact that Singapore, there's actually a lot of grants. So I'm very thankful to our government for availing so many grants. What I went through is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the popular grants or best grants that I picked based on my team's experience in the market. But there are other grants meant for more niche users and niche industries. So for example, there's the MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore grants, specifically meant for financial institutions and fintech firms, right, to do proof of concepts and to adopt a certain form of AI for regulatory tech, or adopt AI to even improve their own processes. Right, and then you have STB, Singapore Tourism Board grants meant for hospitality companies and hotels in Singapore. You got Startup SG Tech and Startup SG Founder grants meant for technologically disruptive startups, and the list goes on and on, right? So actually, there's quite a lot of grants in Singapore. Okay, just sharing some tips for application success, in case any of you're currently going through the process of applying for your own grants. Tip 1 is be very careful about how you plan the costs that you aim to claim for. They should be reasonable, right? Shouldn't be inflated costs or cost that's a lot more expensive than other competing vendors in the market, because you'll get drilled on that by the officer during the Q&A, right? So just make sure the cost you put in is reasonable. Exclude unqualifiable costs, like certain things which the grant specifically say they will not support. Don't put it in, because then you will just invite more questions, right? And the second thing is, if you have the chance, right, do prepare competing quotes. So maybe there's a preferred vendor you like to go for maybe a software, right? And the vendor costs 100K, right? So before you submit, it would be good that you also have 2 other competing quotes of vendors quoting the similar scope, but maybe at a higher price. And then the officer can see that you have done your due diligence, and whatever you're putting forth is already the most viable quotation out of the 3 vendors, right? So this part is also very important. It can help you save a lot of time in the evaluation process. right? So that the officer don't there's not so much to and fro regarding whether you have done your due diligence on the pricing. Third area, okay, very important. Right now, a lot of grant agencies, they are very focused on ensuring that the company's financials are stable, because they want the company to be able to upfront to fund the project in full, right, before the claims come in. They don't want the company to run out of cash halfway through the project and then fail the project, right? Because all of the grants in Singapore are reimbursement basis, most of it, right? So they will scrutinize a lot on the ability of the company's ability to fund the project. And that means they'll look at the financials, they'll calculate your current ratio, which is your current assets over current liability, right? So yeah, all these ratios you might have to pay attention to it, and the financials should be hopefully profitable and showing good ending cash balance from the last year financials. Okay, and then more things to come is basically you have to shape the grant deliverables carefully. Meaning to say, don't overcommit to say that you'll deliver on something that you are not confident of delivering. Otherwise, if the officer bakes that into the offer letter and says that during claim stage they'll be looking out for all these things, right? So don't commit yourself to too much deliverables because if you can't achieve those, it will affect your claims later on. Right? So consider your grant deliverables carefully during the grant application process. Next one, you got to quantify project benefits extensively. Like for example, if you're adopting a software project, you got to really find a framework to justify the time saved, so that you have solid figures to prove to the officer why they should fund this grant. Right? You should calculate the benefits and say that the benefit exceed the cost of the system by 5 times. Then it's very justifiable for the officer to fund it. Okay, you also have to pay attention to business impact forecasts, new job creation for locals as aligned with the new focus on workers' outcome. And last tip is that for larger size projects, right, would be good to socialize the project with an officer first, be it an SME center officer or consultants like us, or even if you have direct contact into Enterprise Singapore, with the evaluating officer, right? Socialize it with the officer first before you put in the effort to build up the proposal, because sometimes just by socializing, you get a sense of whether they are keen to fund, right? Before you spend so much effort to go and do the full-fledged 20-30 page proposal. All right, and I'll just end off with this last slide that the reason why RIC exists, right, is we feel that grants do not have to be burdensome for companies, right? So basically, how we serve companies is that we are their dedicated grant department. So basically, leave everything grant related to us. We can help you plan your full grant roadmap. We also roadmap meaning at which stage of a company can you get whatever grants, right? So it's not just one grant. There's usually many grants you can get across your growth. We manage the full grant life cycle from applications to claims, right? So basically end to end. And we take full ownership of the process. We don't just review your proposal or just help you, paper push and submit online. We actually take charge of the full process, serving as your admin support. Not only admin, but also strategic support as well on helping you answer all the questions and looking through the offer letter, putting in appeals if you want a higher support level, etc. So for us, what we get for our clients, timely approvals, optimal funding outcomes, a smooth reimbursement process, and ultimately a peace of mind when it comes to tapping on grants to fund their business initiatives. And we try to make it as risk-free as possible for our clients. So most of our grants that we do are on success-only basis, which means we only get paid if we successfully secure the offer letter. All right, so that comes to the end of my presentation. This is my LinkedIn. You can scan the QR code and add me on LinkedIn. I know we are most of us, we are already connected on LinkedIn. I see some familiar names. So yeah, for those who are not connected, let's connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Gerald. That was so much information. I think it was really helpful
much.
for a lot of people. Yeah, you can stop share if you